Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Hi. So, clearly not the full professional intro that you're used to. How's it going, everybody? How do we start this one? I might end up taking my hat off part of the way through this, and part of that reason is I woke up at 3 in the morning with a killer migraine. I'm not one who gets really strong headaches or migraines basically ever. I think this is the first one I've had. Well, that's not true. I've had 2 in the last 4 days. But other than that, I haven't had one so bad that it literally woke me up and kept me from being able to go back to sleep until today. The last time I had one, it was mostly just the super front pain that made it very hard to look at a screen, which is literally my job, right? I work with computers, so my desk, there's 4 monitors basically between work and my personal machine. No, I haven't taken a COVID test because the only thing I had is just this crippling headache, and I'm pretty sure I slept on my neck weird or moved while I was asleep, and because this whole portion of the lower back of my neck was all super stiff, and yeah. So anyway, I woke up at 3 a.m. I've been awake since, and it's mostly because up until about an hour ago, my head was pounding so hard I couldn't go back to sleep. So I'm gonna crash pretty early tonight, let's be honest. So if I end up taking this off, it's mostly because I'm trying to prevent any pressure around here from agitating this dumb noodle of mine. But then you'll end up seeing this nonsensical crazy hair, and that just looks terrible. Other than that, let's see what else we got going on. This weekend I'm going to pick up the final residents for Fallen Forest. So the fish that are going in there will be getting here soon. I'm very excited about that. I've already talked to the breeder of those fish. We've kind of partially arranged everything. It's just I need to hey, no exact hour later this week, we'll holler if you start drooling. Oh man. And then there's the topic of today. Rather than be on a fish topic, I'll probably get back to real fish topics soon, I promise. But I got I'm gonna spin this around so I don't show my address, but I got this in the mail. Some context. If you're not familiar with the Aquarium Guys Podcast, Robs is in chat, and then he typically hosts with his co-host Jimmy. I've been on the podcast twice. They're fun guys, a little more edgy than most of you two. So if you're looking for a little almost shock jock radio, I mean not true shock jocks, but there's some inspiration there, whether Robs wants to admit it or not. But just kind of no need to hold back. They're a ton of fun. Anyway, we talk pretty often in the grand scheme of things, especially lately, and including one of the video games we all mutually play. So occasionally we'll play a game together or two of League of Legends, which I like to refer to as pain and misery. But they decided to send me a package and made me promise to open it on stream and that it is safe for work. I'm not sure what they classify as safe for work, though, having spent time with them in both their podcasts and outside their podcasts, but we'll see. So we're gonna dig into this bad boy. Man, I'm thinking now I probably should have been smart and brought a blade up, but I surely can tear this open. It is but paper, right? Ugh. Yeah, it's weird. When the few times I get these like super bad headaches, 'cause I don't get them very often. No. Oh no. All right, spin this thing back around. All right, so I see the bulk of this. What the are you sending me? So there's a little vial. This looks like literally a sing. You're such a jackass. I don't know if my camera will pick that up, but it's literally a single Malaysian trumpet snail in a vial of water. Okay. That'll go straight in an aquarium because I'm not scared of Malaysian trumpet snails at all. Uh, my next substrate to test. This is a very, very high quantity of rainbow colored gravel to go with my snail. I think they're trying to get me to build a snail tank. I mean, look at this. Look at this masterpiece. Some like salmon color in there, some peach, like hot pink. This is just like a small child's crayon box sneezed all over gravel and some psycho wants to put it in an aquarium. I get concerned about you sometimes, Rob. I want you to know that. So I start cluing people in. So they have for those that don't know, they've talked about this nefarious looking lift tube here. Nicely drilled out at the bottom and top. So you can drop your airline in. You see, Jimmy apparently has a secret. And that secret is apparently in this package. Clown puke gravel. It's over 90 years old. That means it is older than any living member of my family. I'm gonna have to tear this thing a bit more to get this out. Oh boy. And I thought you said there were 5 things in here. Oh, there is a 5th thing. I see it. I see it. I gotta set it down there. We've got this lovely slate bottom. I actually think this is the best piece of craftsmanship that you've sent me. Is the slate bottom. Just using some tile. And the Jim Colby special. So, I think I need to explain. Hold on. Now it's a sponge filter, but if you don't know the Aquarium Guys, Jimmy has a bit of a secret, which is to say that he makes sponge filters out of a very interesting choice of foam. It's quite plush. It smells like you actually cleaned it, so it might not have come directly from a junkyard. But supposedly, according to Mr. Jim, the best sponge filters are made from the front seats of Cadillacs. You heard that correct. So this autographed, high quality Cadillac filter. It is literally the Cadillac of sponge filters. And I'm supposed to put this in an aquarium with the Sharpie signature on it. Oh, Lord. Sometimes I worry about you guys. All right. Oh, my Lord. And then they sent me one other piece. You can see their nice little Aquarium Guys logo. If you haven't checked out the Aquarium Guys podcast, please do. There, I've been on 2 episodes. Like Alex from Secret History, I think has been like 10. I know he's been there a bunch. But Robs and I also play Magic, so he sent me a Magic card, which is Wrath's Edge, which is often a land that gets made fun of, but it allows you to deal damage directly to a player from a land, which is a kind of rare thing. And he sent me his Wrath, is what he's trying to say, which is probably what these things are: the 90-year-old clown puke gravel and the singular Malaysian trumpet snail that may or may not have made the trip. We'll find out. Adam, yes, I absolutely play Commander. That's basically the only format I play. I play a little bit on Magic Arena. I didn't remember the name. My brain's really messed up today because it's been such a nightmare. But I play a little bit on Magic Arena here and there, but for the most part, if I'm going to play, I prefer playing Commander in person. And that's just because it's a social thing. It's a group of friends that I love hanging out with. The pandemic really messed that up. Like a lot of that group of friends I haven't seen for a couple of years at this point. Like half of that group. I've seen some of them recently, but yeah. Yeah, I played Magic for a super long time. What do you think of pre-DH? I mean, if you're talking like the old school Elder Dragon Highlander format that Sheldon Menery and people put together, it's fine. I think the problem with, I know we'll get into fish stuff soon, I promise. Other than like our literal Cadillac sponge filters. The problem with Commander in general is that most of the people who play it a lot, a large portion of decks have just become like jam these certain staples in if you're playing these colors, and not what it was like when I started really getting into Commander, where everything was a little more unique and interesting. So yeah. Oh, you want me to actually put the tube in? Fine. That is an assembled, signed Cadillac sponge filter. Pre-EH goes up until the new Phyrexia set. Sure. I mean, it prevents you from getting a lot of the stuff, basically, that Wizards kind of ruined about Commander. Which is to say, when they started printing Commander-specific cards and all sorts of psychotic products and just, like, trying to rake in money as fast as possible. Yeah. I'm super dissatisfied with Wizards as a company, to the point of where brother-in-law James, and I know a lot of people are like, what are we babbling about? I promise we'll be on Fish soon. And if you guys have questions, like, feel free at Bentley Pascal in the chat. We'll start getting to questions here shortly. As we just had kind of fun from this package that Rob and Jimmy from the Aquarium Guys sent me to make my life nervous wreck. Maybe that's why I was sick. It's all Rob's fault. And I have to go over all these chats from Rob's because he's being such a nice guy sending super chats. First, start with hi, Dad. Thankfully, I'm not your dad. I'd be so ashamed. Oh man. It explained that like they call this gravel, which is I can remember this stuff in the 80s when I was a kid, being all over the place. And yes, there was kids who loved this gravel, clown puke gravel, and apparently this stuff in particular is over 90 years old. And then the Wrath's Edge that he sent me, the magic card, is the worst legendary land, and that's not true. There's worse, I assure you. This can at least do direct damage. There are others that are worse. I assure you. We can dig deep in the well. But basically, brother-in-law James is helping me with a project where we're going to organize my entire Magic collection, which is like a full walk-in closet. So this is my bedroom, right? This is one corner of my bedroom where my desk and stuff is. I got my like bed over that way, and then down that way is like the bathroom and a walk-in closet. It's not super huge, but um, it's got good space. And if you account for the fact that almost literally everything in that closet is Magic the Gathering cards, um, it would show you the level of psychotic nerd I am. So we're gonna organize my collection, and then basically outside of my Commander decks, which is the one format I still play, I'm gonna get rid of my entire Magic collection. There's a few things that I'll keep that aren't even in my house. They sit in a safe deposit box in a bank vault, but that's just because there are a few of the like super high value things that I have from when I was a kid. And when I used to collect Magic a ton when I was very, very young in the first few sets. Yeah, I have a lot of really old Magic stuff. And that stuff just sits until I decide I'm tired with that too. But yeah. So, now we can do fish stuff, which we'll start with Leo209, who had a member super chat. Man, you've almost hit a year, Leo. It's pretty awesome. We need to do a review of the Seache whale, and by we, I mean me. Thanks again, Puffer, as a rule. The 75-gallon is almost ready. It's tank made shopping. Man, Leo, you remind me a ton of like when I was getting back into the hobby and I started like going hog wild and nuts. Uh, you'll rein it in eventually, but yeah. Oh man, the Keystone Clash is here. Scotty, what's up, buddy? Nabokov fan donated to a game shop or charity thing. So I mean, the stuff that's worth a reasonable amount of money, I'll sell, right? But a lot of like, what we would call like bulk, I'll probably just there's a couple local card shops that I like, and I'll probably give quite a lot of it away, if they want it, because they might not have room for it and might decide they don't want it. But there is a card shop local to me that I know the owner relatively well, so I'll probably talk with him and try to help him just earn some extra income in his store. I might put some stuff on consignment or something. I don't know. I'll figure it out. It's a ways off because like there's just so much stuff that has to be cataloged that it will take a while. Lumpy Dog, I've got turquoise rainbow eggs coming out my ears. This is all your fault. I don't feel like that's a problem, Lumpy Dog. I feel like that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. Don't you have Lumpy Dog? Don't you have a local fish store you can work with? Because like turquoise rainbows are always going to be popular because they can take slightly cooler temperatures. They don't need to be as hot as some of the. Not that rainbows have to be hot, but more like for people who like cooler water tanks and are trying to do like more closer to 70 degrees, they can handle that quite a lot. But yeah. So I don't know. I can't say that's a problem. Seems like a good problem to have. I would love to have the problem of too many baby rainbow fish. Kaylee Caulfield is saying, I haven't gotten any. I have 6 turquoise. They're huge. What do you do? Honestly, with turquoise rainbows, one of the things that I've seen be effective for getting breeding behavior out of them. So one, they're usually an early morning spawner. So feed them early when your light's coming on, and then more regular water changes, especially if you give them like really good stuff like frozen Daphnia or live baby brine, stuff like that. That usually encourages breeding behavior out of them. And then they usually have to have something they want to spawn on, so like good spawning mops or something like that. It tends to be easier if you just have like one male and a couple females, or maybe 2 males and 3 to 4 females as a small breeding colony in a smaller tank. That way they're not chasing the females all over the place. They don't have to work quite as hard to actually do all their courting and stuff. So like I like something like a 40-gallon breeder or even like a 29-gallon can work. Depends on how big your turquoise are currently. Yeah, and when they're full dressed, like they have a like sulfuric orange head stripe. Do you think they'll spawn on hornwort? Yeah, yeah. Hornwort's a really good like natural spawning mop. But if you're trying to like guaranteed collect it, getting yourself at like a cheap acrylic yarn spawning mop's not going to hurt you. Do do do. Kenton's 3D at Aquatics just said Black Lotus. I've had a few of those. When I was originally playing Magic, so I sold my collection once back in like '96, and I had four of them at the time. Yeah, mistakes were made as a child. That's okay. It's part of life, right? We live and learn. Connor Costello, what are your favorite uncommon slash rare stem plants that can go without CO2? Good question. So it's becoming more common, but I would say that Pogostemon erectus is one of my favorites. It certainly looks a lot better with CO2 because it gets much more dense leafage, right? Those little like needle leaves. I also really like Rotala Enie, Enie. That's one of the very fine, kind of almost feather duster looking ones, which is pretty fantastic. And then it's not it's not crazy rare, but it's been harder to find lately. Is Ludwigia atlantis? It's got just this really cool yellowish orange color, and it's as a Ludwigia, it's a relatively easy plant, but it just has a nice like kind of rounded leaf shape, not like round. It's got that. It's kind of like the what we're talking about, where it comes to like an almost teardroppy type leaf shape, but nice and bulked out. And then that color, like when it grows up toward the top, if you kind of look from the underside, you get this cool like yellowy orange filter through all the leaves, and it's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That's those would be like three that I would go for, and they're in three different ones. So like the Rotala is super fast growing when it's happy. The Pogastamon is not. It needs higher light, but it's not a crazy fast grower unless you're using CO2. And then the Ludwigia is a Ludwigia, right? Most Ludwigias are pretty easy until you start going to like the really crazy stuff, like um, Pantanol or some of the like Inclinata variations, and that's where you get some like real crazy stuff. And a lot of those, except for like Ludwigia White or Tornado, can all be done without CO2. They don't need CO2. CO2 is just like playing with a little bit of steroids, basically. That's the easiest way to think about it for Ludwigias, at least. Okay. Matthew Bishop, should I worry about pH change if I use Mexican beach pebbles as decorative substrate layer? I'm going for a South American setup, pH 6.5 ish. Not really, because if I remember correctly, the Mexican beach pebble is relatively inert. It has minimal impact on your water change. It's not like something like Ceru stone, or Safety's orb as an example. So Safety's orb will, because it's a Montmorillonite clay. I almost said dolomite clay. I'm like, that's not right. My brain just taking a trip. But Montmorillonite clay is really good at buffering GH, right? It's one of the things that it will use underneath a substrate to, instead of like crushed coral, some people use like powdered up Montmorillonite clay. Uh, Safety's Orb's literally just made from Montmorillonite. So it will buffer your TDS up, which can be really nice. If you're in super soft water like I am, and you need that for, say, rainbow fish, or or some other like species that like a little bit of hardness to their water. But if you're trying to keep your water relatively low pH, the most of the like Mexican river and beach pebbles should be okay from my recollection. I wouldn't stress about it too much. Uh oh, some more magic comments. So SC just saw Jester's cap and a Jester's mask and desk the other day. Nice. I loved Jester's cap. It's such a like wacky weird card. It was really fun to play with when I was a kid. That and like a lot of the cards in the Mirage set were some of my favorite cards as far as like new stuff. I loved all the old cards because I used to play a lot of like very competitive Magic when I was a kid. And then later as an adult when I got back into Magic again, I played super competitively for a while. It was like uh, almost it's almost a second job. I remember when I was getting ready for like some of the bigger tournaments to try and qualify for Pro Tour and stuff, I would put in like 30 hours a week doing play tests with some of my friends, trying to like optimize everything we were working with. Back when I had all the free time in the world and didn't like wasn't a full adult. I was an adult, but I didn't have like all the responsibilities I do nowadays. Like I don't know, a wife and dogs and fish. Just it was like me, and I got some cats. They just take care of themselves. Oh man, oh man. Let's see. Wait, my wife likes male guppies and yellow neocaridina shrimp. What a combo! Like I love yellow neos, but I cannot keep them alive. Mostly because I just misunderestimate how much food they really need. Is probably what it comes down to. And I put them in tanks where I feel like I'm feeding a lot, but there's like the last time I did it was putting in the Guppy Mansion. There's hundreds of guppies in that stupid tank, so it's like, yeah, I'm feeding a lot. Except there's hundreds of guppies taking all that food, so yeah, I'm not really feeding that much apparently. You know what it is. You know what it is. One of these days I'll get better at that stuff. What plant should I put in there for her? So, in general, I would say if you're trying to go really easy on your maintenance, like crypts and java ferns are great because they give lots of surface area for your shrimp to find all that biofilm and all those little things that they like. Plus, they'll maintain it. But also, moss is amazing if you have a good shrimp colony because the shrimp will keep your moss super clean and that'll make that moss super happy. So, things like your willow mosses or your Christmas moss, Physidens fontanus, some of those like cooler mosses, but not before you're going like on the real crazy side of mosses, are great because the shrimp will keep it super clean, right? And it gives them lots of ground to just scavenge on and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Those are some of my go-tos when it comes to shrimp. You've kind of course look at some stems. If I was to do stems, I would look more towards some of your broader leaf stuff. So Ludwigias would be good. It depends on the height of the tank too. Alternanthera reinekii is great if you want a big bright red pop because the yellow shrimp will stand out against it, and then depending on the guppy colors, they can stand out. If you want to stick more to green, I would look at like Hygrophila corymbosa or Hygrophila augustifolia. Those are two just great kind of broader leaf plants that are really durable, will give lots of surface area for the shrimp to like graze on and do the shrimp thing, right? On top of naturally what you're going to feed them. Yeah, it comes down to like what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to go real crazy, super aquascape, that might inform your decisions a little differently. But if you're looking for more simplistic plants so that it doesn't take a ton of maintenance and you can kind of let the shrimp do most of the work, that's where I'd look at like java ferns, some mosses, crypts, and then maybe some of the stems that don't grow crazy fast. So like I'd avoid rotalas and protostemons and look more at like hygrophila, the reedy types of hygrophila that sit a little shorter and have more broad growth as opposed to grow super tall, super fast. Like definitely don't do hygrophila polysperma. That grows like crazy. It'll get out of control really, really fast. That's what I'd be looking at. Nabokov fan. Oh, before that, Adele is giving some love to Geek Boy. Yeah, dude. I commented on the video. I don't know if you saw Geek Boy, but just in as a like plant psychopath, anytime I get to see someone's tanks and I am sitting there going like, wow, those plants are happy. I always consider that like anytime that more than just impressed, where I'm like, man, I want my tanks to be looking like that, right? When I'm looking purely at plant health, I feel like that's the highest compliment I can give almost anyone. So in that regard, I'm envious of some of your tanks because your plants look immaculate. Just got to put it out there, man. Got to put it out there. If you haven't watched that on Dan's Fish, he's got a tour of Geek Boy's place. Check it out. It's just his tanks. All of his tanks are beautiful. Fantastic care toward the plants. Better than me. Way better than me. I'm just some dum-dum on the internet who's pretty lazy these days. Getting lazy in my old age, man. Rob, can I come help sort and sell? If you really want to, go for it. If you want to come out to Seattle, I don't. I guess you could crash on a couch. Might be a little awkward. I don't know. Oh man. Okay, Nabokov fan. I officially retired the 29 gallon we were working on and moved everything into a 75 gallon. A stuffed 29 fits well with room in a 75. Seriously, thank you for all your help. What a pain algae was. Yeah, dude, I mean, here's the thing. Algae is not... How do I put this? Because I think a lot of, especially new Aquarius, and not to say, Nabokov fan, that you're a new Aquarius, but, like, there is this perception that, like, algae is something that you just beat once and it's done. And it's like, no. Algae is continuous warfare. Because algae is this super simple organism that once one thing goes out of balance, you can get an algae bloom, even in a super established, well-built tank, right? I deal with algae blooms regularly in a number of my tanks. And it's just part of aquatics. And you kind of just get used to it. And sometimes you'll go years with a tank where you'll never have an algae bloom and you're doing what is perceived as the same thing. But there's some small differences. Maybe you're feeding a touch more. Maybe you're not doing water changes as often. Or, oh, I've been super busy with work. I'm not cleaning my filter out quite as often as I should. Or, I forgot to fertilize the last 2 weeks. I better get back on my fertilizer. And your plants are like, bruh. Right? And then something gets out of whack and algae can bloom out, right? And it's just, you can have tanks that seem stable for years and still get algae blooms for so many different reasons that tackling algae is never a universal answer. And I think that's the thing that can be really hard, especially as new aquarists. Like, I remember in some of my first few tanks when I was fighting algae, I was so lost because there's just so many variables that can impact algae. And no matter how many videos you watch or people you talk to or fish police forums you go to and people trying to help you, whatever it may be, it's almost impossible to know exactly what the problem is every time. So that's why usually the approach that I take, and I'm actually working with a couple people right now that are newer, that aren't people I've been kind of like yourself that I've been kind of continuously working with, where there's so many variables that we have to like just slowly play with a couple small things at a time and then monitor it for a couple weeks and see how it impacts. Because if you just pull too many levers at once, right, you're never going to figure out what the problem is, and it becomes very hard to get yourself back on that long-term success track. But if you tinker little bits at a time, and for some people, that's a nightmare because they're staring at this algae problem. It feels like it's never going away because it's literally like months of work because you're slowly playing and just like, just adjust that little thing. And okay, just now it's this one. Nah, no, it's this one. I'm not really seeing improvement yet. Okay, I got to try this thing over here. So just a little improvement, maybe just a little bit more, right? You're playing this game to balance out a nature system that is not designed, realistically speaking, to sit in a glass box. Nature doesn't like being held captive in a glass box, but we want it to be. So we play this game with so many variables, things that we can't realistically perfectly monitor if even if we wanted to, because in order to do it perfectly, you would need basically a photospectrometer to do it right. Right? You got all these different things, and you're playing with all these different dials and things, but we can get there. It's just about whether or not you have the patience to walk through that process, which you have, right? I mean, we've been working on your tank for a while, and I know that like I've gone through some dark windows of basically no communication because I've been working my brains out, because that's just what my job demands. But I, I think, I think kind of like the reset of moving to a new tank will help. And it's not a great. I hate to use that as like an answer to people. Is like we're basically going to reset your tank, but sometimes it's worth it because you just decide like, nah, I want a bigger tank anyway, right? I don't know. We'll see. We'll work on it together. If you start running into problems, we'll figure it out. Uh, Leo 209 with sand to get good root system growing for plants that are planted 4 inches. It, this feels like a weird phone tried to like autocorrect. So okay, using sand, you're trying to get a good root system. You're trying to go 4 inches or higher as far as like depth of sand. I'm assuming that's correct. First off, if you're doing that, make sure it's a coarser grain sand. Super fine sands at as you start getting to like 4+ inches, really compact the roots hard. So I would look at things like um, the finest I would go with something like lapis luster. I wouldn't use like pool filter sand. Um, but that's me personally. Realistically, what I would do is if I'm doing a bunch of sand, I would use epiphyte plants because then I'm not worried about the root system at all, and I don't have to have a very thick sand base if I don't want to. However, if you are going that route, I would potentially look at putting a thin layer of lava rock on the bottom of my tank first and then sand over the top. Because that way, as the root systems dig in, they have something that's a little larger and more porous they can grab onto to help decompact some of that sand as you get into the higher depths. It's a trick I've used in the past on a couple of tanks that helped crypts do well and some of the other like bigger root feeding plants that want those strong root systems when I wanted a little bit more substrate depth. But in general, I avoid sand because I personally actually don't like the look of most sands. I prefer darker substrates because I keep rainbows, and rainbows really like dark substrate. They show much better color on dark substrate. Light substrate, they show blah color. Because I'm a crazy person. Rob, do you have a Eureka for sale? No, I don't have a Eureka. Sorry, man. It was one on the plant site. Chose not to purchase back when I had a chance, and now it's just too expensive for me to ever consider. Oh, man. Ian Firewater, hello, plant health. What's that? Come on, man. Come on. We can get him there. We can get him there. Caitlin DeRozier, would a few shrimp be good in a fry grow out? Need something to keep moss mat free of debris? Yes. Oh, depending on what kind of fry you're doing, shrimp can work really well. Shrimp will most shrimp, at least like cherry shrimp, I've experienced. Cherry shrimp and neochiridinas in general are actually really good at helping minimize the amount of fungus that can occur on eggs without killing the eggs. Like unlike snails will just gobble up all your eggs. So yes, short answer, yes. Shrimp with fry, great. I actually want to get to a point in my future when I'm spawning rainbow fish again, to where I'm either keeping shrimp or corydoras as in the baby tanks. So as I'm raising them, I either want corydoras doing kind of like the ground control, or I want shrimp doing it. But once rainbows hit a certain size, then they start eating shrimp, so that's a problem. Because rainbows are jerks. They're just big dumb jerks, but I love them. I love them. Can't help it. They're so colorful and so happy. Matthew Bishop and chat, has anyone had any experience with Amazon tiger shrimp? Oh, no, I have not. I struggle enough with neocaradinas. I don't go into any of the fancier shrimps. And fancier is more of a, like, less common shrimp. Because if I can't get the common shrimp right, I just know I'm, like, wasting my time with anything more interesting. I'm sure someone in chat does, though. Stephen P. Algae loves to take advantage of inconsistency. Absolutely. Yeah, if you can balance things correctly, you really get almost no algae. You'll get very minimum dust algae, right? But once you stop, you do anything lazily, which will tell you what I deal with all the time, you're going to eventually encounter some form of algae. Because something's going to get a little out of whack. And then once that imbalance occurs, that inconsistency shows up, algae's like, look, food. And it adapts and attacks. But we can get it under control. It's just time consuming. Rocky Miles, I have black brush algae on several Anubias. Would a couple of nearite snails help? I've had relatively decent luck with nearite snails taking care of some amount of blackbeard algae. But I've also seen them, if there's enough other food in the tank, ignore it entirely. So you might have to do a combo of things. It depends on what else is in that tank. I've used things like a mono shrimp and nearite snails as a combo in the Guppy mansion to help put some algae under control. But when they weren't going on certain plants, just because they had so much other food everywhere else, I eventually had to break down to get some SAEs in there. Because I needed something that would more aggressively eat the algae, and now it's gone. So, that's nice. Took care of it eventually. And as those SAEs get larger, they're going to have to get out of that tank soon. So I don't want them eating baby guppies, and they certainly will. These little piggies. Little piggies. But yeah, it depends on what all's in that tank, Rocky and Mouse. Nearite snails can be very, very good. I've especially seen the best results with the horned nearites. But I love the spotted red shell and the tire track, or the racer style nearites. Those are just the ones that visually are more appealing to me, so I tend to buy those. But if you can find horned nearites, those guys are algae eating machines. They seem to eat algae even more aggressively than standard nearites do, which is very nice. Must be careful working your brains out. That can be dangerous. Yeah, sometimes the stress does build up. That's a lot of why I do fish, is it really helps mitigate stress, to be honest. Man, Rob, you're killing me in chat right now. Can I buy some Bentley guppies? So there actually are some of my guppies currently available at Redfish Bluefish. Because I delivered 35 pairs. That reminds me, I actually have to send them an invoice. I'm so bad at doing that, man. I care so... How to put this? I worry so little about the monetary side of the hobby that I forget to invoice the store that I bring fish to. People racing on the streets near my neighborhood drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. All right, let me see here. I know I'm going to be Joe MTL. I have a question about Malaysian trumpet snails. Since females can clone themselves, has anyone ever identified which snails are males? Dude, I have no clue. I always have a bunch of them. Leo209, what sand do you recommend? I don't recommend sand. but that's because I have a personal bias against sand. I think it depends on what you're trying to go for. I actually like the what is it? Carib Sea Naturals. They have a very small, like rounded pebble that looks kind of agate-ish, and I just love the way that that looks. I would rather do that over sand, personally. And it's very small. I think it's like the Jewel River or something like that. I'd have to look it up. One sec. Let me go to Carib Sea. You have to select the right stuff though, Bentley. Peace River, that's what I'm thinking of. There's Peace River, and then their Jungle River sand is actually a relatively good granule size. Is between zero point 0.5 and 1.5 millimeters. Where like the Peace River is 1 to 2 millimeters, so it's a fairly fine gravel in the grand scheme of things. If you want to go super fine, then you would look at more like that's where you start looking at like your Sunset Gold, or if you're in the in the Carib Sea stuff. There's also like if you want something that's slightly more white and not as dark, you could look at like the Carolina Creek, which is between 1 and 2.5 millimeters. So you get a reasonable range of sizes, but it's more whites and off whites than getting into like the kind of tans and browns and stuff like that as a mixture. It really depends on what you're going for. Hashtag Alex and me. I know what that must mean. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thanks, Alex. Oh, man. Shows how far behind on chat I am. All right. Make sure I'm not missing something in there. Shrimp have been known to clean eggs of fish. Yeah. Nap Aquatics, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, like, I did some tests on some mops back when I was breeding rainbows a bit more. And honestly, like, Neocaradinas, like, the blues and the reds especially, are really good about leaving the eggs themselves alone, but cleaning the problems around them, so they can just be it's not truly symbiotic, but there is a different word than symbiotic for that type of relationship where it's a mutually beneficial relationship in aquatics. It's like the cleaner fish that help, like cleaner wrasses and stuff like that, to clean up some of the problems. Those types of fish are freaking amazing. Rob, can I buy some Bentley Guppies? Got more multiple tank syndromes to pay. Yeah. But yeah. There are some pairs of redfish, bluefish. Getting back to that, because I dropped off a bunch. And then, dude, Jeff Kane. What's up, buddy? Thanks for the 10 memberships, man. Hopefully, if a few of you have those turned on. If you don't, it'll give you a little notification that says, like, I would like to get them free things. I like the free stuffs. Orange cones. Recommendation of an aquatic plant ID site. I mean, realistically, your best bet's going to be a lot of Facebook groups, unfortunately. There isn't really a well-designed site, because even like Google Lens, which is pretty good at identifying things in pictures, is not very good at narrowing down the various species of plants. And that's what makes it tough. That's what makes it super tough. Oh, there's the jump. There's all the gifted memberships. Welcome. Welcome, friends. Oh, that's a good tip from Alex. The horned mini neorites, they also are cool because they lay less of the white eggs than the standard ones do. Caitlin DeRozier, they are Medaka rice fish, so definitely not worried about them picking off shrimp. It's bare bottom, so mini gravel vac to push. Yeah, and one thing you might do if you are going to keep shrimp is, Caitlin, just put a very thin layer of substrate. And this can be sand. It could be some like your clay ball style substrates, things like that. But a very thin layer helps the shrimp in general because they like picking through stuff. But you could keep it so thin that you basically don't need to really worry about it. It will be better for the shrimp long term than bare bottom, but you can do bare bottom. So, don't feel like you need to. Shrimp equals crunchy cichlid snacks. Yeah. So I think that's the problem with like being a big rainbow fish fan is that like I can't keep small shrimp even if I want to because they just turn into food and that becomes very expensive snacks for my dumb rainbows. They don't need that expensive snack. They're gonna eat it, but they don't need it. Little jerks. Okay. What is the hardiest plant that would tolerate an occasional nip? I've heard Congo spotted puffers like to nip plants, which I'm fine with, as long as my plants aren't dying. So I have seen Congo spotted puffers in a number of different tanks. And one of the things that I would point you immediately to is there is a plant that's in the Congo River system that is notorious for being very durable, and that's Bulbitis. So you're talking about a plant that comes from a portion of the... Now, granted, the Congo River system is enormous, and like where the puffers are versus where you find most of the wild Bulbitis is not the same. But they grow in similar water systems with similar parameters. So Bulbitis can handle the inherent harder water that puffers tend to do best in, because like they're going to be eating shelled stuff and it's going to leave, it's going to add mineral content to the water, things like that. Bulbitis is a very tough plant. You can do the same thing with Crips. I've seen Crips stand up to like Murphy, right, at the aquarium co-op. A Maboo puffer who's 2 feet long with a beak that can take my finger off if he was trying to, right? But Crips just inherently, they can handle taking a little damage here and there. They're relatively tough plants. Java Fern is very similar. I would lean toward either broader leaf Java Ferns or Bulbitises, right? Those are super easy, very durable. They give lots of cover, so if your fish want to hide, they can hide. But as they feel like everything's a hiding place, you'll actually end up seeing them more because they get super comfortable, right? It's just the nature of a lot of fish. One of those things that I think works very, very well. Alex is chiming in on sand, is that he prefers pool filter sand because it is quartz-based and not coral-based, so it's not going to mess with your TDS. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I just hate sand. I like dark sub. I'm a rainbow guy. We want dark substrates. Dark substrates equals better color in the rainbows. Sand equals blah color in the rainbows. They wash their color out because they just do that. It's what they do. It's what they do. There is so Adam Worley mentioned mini neorites. There's actually this. They come from Israel. There's a guy on the Aquarium Co-op forum who's talking about them. They're basically these mini neorites. So, they're like a quarter the size of a neorite that can breed in freshwater, but they look like neorites. So they have a similar shell shape. They get the kind of like zebra stripe pattern of like the zebra neorites, but they're not widely distributed, and it's almost impossible to get them out of Israel, which is where they're naturally occurring. But they live in freshwater, they spawn in freshwater, and there's one guy who has them, and like that's it. 186 element. Looks like Bentley needs to top the Fluid Effects. Yeah, I would have done that today if I wasn't like literally in crippling pain most of the day. Like the worst headache I've had in 4 or 5 years. It's a very fun day. Very fun day. I've literally only been feeling good for like 2 hours now, which is... It's good to feel good finally, and not have my head just like feeling like a hammer is pounding through my skull. But yeah. Try to catch up to the chat. Oh man. Adam Worley, Linda Worth, Asaya, Matt M, Chance Larson, Olivia CK, Adam Lash, Sherelle Zandel, Johnny of Dancefish, and M McIntyre. Welcome to the Gifted Membership Club. Welcome in. Thanks as always, Jeff Kane. You're such a nice person, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Jeff Kane, yard sand for life. Hey, man, everybody's got their jam. Everybody's got their jam. I'm just not a sand guy. Not a sand guy. Do. Oh, man, did I actually catch up to chat finally? Can miracles happen? That's good, because we're toward the end. So... Michael Milieri. You should put some rads in Fallen Forest. So Fallen Forest is actually getting its final denizens this week, and it's not Radnocentris. And part of that is just that when the last opportunity I had to buy rads, there were people that were super excited to get them in my local club, and I chose to let them have them. Because I want more people to get interested in rainbow fish. And rads is like a really good launching point, because they stay small. But yeah. That I think you'll like the fish for Fallen Forest. They're really, really pretty fish. They have a thing that is a little unique to them. And I'll have... I think it's going to be 15 of them total in Fallen Forest. As long as my math is correct. And I'm going to pick them up this weekend. Yeah. Alright. Alright. Caitlin DeRozier, are you planning on bringing any plants to the GSAS auction next month? Yeah, probably. I mean, that's the big auction, right? So we get 20-something lots. It's like 22 if we register early, 20 if you register day of, if I remember right. I will have a amount of plants with me. That's for certain. It'll probably be mostly like, I've got a lot of excess Java Fern and Bulbitis still, but I'll probably bring in some of my crypts too. Like my Florida Sunset crypts have really gotten happy in the last like 5 months. So I've got a good number of Florida Sunset crypts, so I can actually bring some into auction, because that's one that we don't see very often anymore. And then, of course, like Jacobson I Pink is something I regularly do, and probably some of my Ponadera folia. And then Ludwigia arcuata cross repens, just because I grow a ton of that stem. And I don't know, there might be something else. It depends on how some of the other plants I've got going right now or decide to do, if they really take off in the next like 2 weeks. I kind of doubt they'll take off that fast. They're still kind of settling in, so we'll see. Guppy girl, guppy problems. After about a year old, adult guppies start falling apart. Body sometimes becomes cloudy. White males get torn fins. Do you think is a soft water problem? Probably. I would say it's probably a matter of not enough mineral content. However, I have guppies that tend to like slightly softer water, don't like their water super hard, so that my guppies typically like around about 120 parts per million GH. So not super hard. Like most guppies typically want like fairly hard water, where the Moscow Blues, at least mine, don't like it super hard. They actually do better in slightly softer water. Not like super soft water. They need that mineral content, but just based on what you're saying, especially after a year. Now, granted, most guppies have really short lives. Like I would say the expected lifespan for a guppy is like 1 to 2 years. They're designed to prolifically breed because they have short lifespans. Like, that's just a natural part of what guppies do. However, depending on the type of guppy, some of them are more likely to have that 2 to 3. Also, as you start getting higher quantities of guppies in a tank, they will kind of shut down. This is kind of a common problem with guppies. So if you get them really cramped, they can just kind of shut down and stop doing stuff, and you'll see the adults kind of fall apart. And also, if you're in super high water temps, that can also cause problems with guppies. I don't like a lot of the designer guppies that come out of Thailand because they're kept so hot that they live extremely short lifespans. I much prefer sitting in that like 74 to 76 range with my guppies because they seem to live longer, healthier lives that way. So, hopefully those couple bits of info help you out, Guppy Girl, and you can kind of test a couple adjustments. Remember, when you're making adjustments, just only do like one at a time and monitor. Try to monitor, like make a change and monitor it for a month and see if you start seeing improvements in health, less fin issues, whatever it may be. Like you look at all these little telltale signs, and if you start seeing like, oh, I see an obvious visual improvement by doing this one change, then you can keep that exactly the same and then make the next small change, right? Lots of small changes, longer term success. That's what you want to shoot for. Who you should actually ask, Caitlin, is what crazy nonsense Alex will bring to the auction, because Alex has been growing a ludicrous number of plants lately. The last 2 years, dude. I mean, you've just been going hog wild. You're like trying to catch my title. I might actually have to work again. Last one from Rob. Sorry for causing your headache. Time for salt. So if you guys don't know, I'm gonna put this on blast because Rob is trying to pick a fight, and as my friends at the Aquarium Guys Podcast sent me this lovely autographed Cadillac sponge filter. Yes, that's correct. This for those who came in late, this foam comes out of the seat of a Cadillac, turned into a sponge filter. And if you can, we'll get it up close. I want you to just see the pores in this thing, right? Look how fine that bad boy is. It's very plush, too. You can see why Cadillacs are so comfy. So we can literally say that they sent me the Cadillac of sponge filters. But Rob has started an experiment where he is doing a cold water salt tank that is all air driven. No fancy equipment, with coral, and so far, despite the fact that he's done tons of research and he's doing this as an experiment. So he has a control tank side by side with his experiment tank. And the control tank is following most of your norms for doing a coral tank. He is defying common internet wisdom and seeing success, which hopefully means that if we can, as Rob keeps documenting this is one of the things we've been talking about quite a lot. He's trying to get me to do it too, but I told him no because I don't have any room. But trying to document success to get to the point where the conversion for us freshwater folks to saltwater without having to light $8,000 on fire is possible. And Rob is literally doing an experiment to see just how incomplete the information on the internet is. And so far has had some reasonably good success. So that's cool. Okay, so you go a little lower. Guppy Girl, what I would try to do is just to finish this up, and then we'll probably be done for the night here, folks, just because I can only stare at a screen for so long right now without my brain trying to go back to major pain mode. Try to pin it closer to that 74 range if you can, right? And then, yeah, just up your TDS just a touch. Just add a little bit of mineral content, crushed coral, something like that. Something nice and simple. And just monitor it for a month and see what you're doing. Orange cones, I started out as a saltwater reef keeper. Never again. I'm telling you, if everything goes right. Yeah, so here's Rob with another update, man. You just quit hucking money at me, man. Quit that stuff. You already sent me the Cadillac of sponge filters. doing. No motor, no heat. So it's room temperature. Now, granted, he keeps his room at a like pretty steady 70 degrees, but all air driven parts. So air filtration. He's sent me some pictures. Maybe we'll have to talk about that in the near future. We'll have to do some kind of interview of some format and really go over the success of your experiment thus far and how it looks like it should be doing in the future, because not seeing indications that normally would be like coral stress or any of that. So pretty positive stuff. Might make salts more appealing for some of us who look at the cost of salt and go like, no thanks. It's just no, I can get like 10 freshwater tanks for that much money. All right. With that being said, gang, thank you so much for playing in on the fun. I look forward to my viled Malaysian trumpet snail going into the tank. Clearly, the puke gravel will have to go somewhere. And then I'm not sure what I'm doing with this bad boy. We'll figure it out, though. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.